Hi guys, welcome to Abuse Recovery Success. Today is really kind of a special, different episode. I have joining with me today Taylor Wood, who is a business development coordinator for the Hills Group, but she's really much more than that. She's a close friend, almost like a sister, a daughter, just one of the people that's been with me from almost the beginning of my start in business, as well as the beginning of this podcast. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce today Taylor Wood. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. You know, I love being here and being a part of the podcast, so I'm really excited.
I am excited too. So me and Taylor were talking, and we kind of just came to the conclusion that over the stretch of time, there might be some questions or some things out there that people might be wondering and that she's thought of because she's been here from the beginning. So Taylor, why don't you tell us what you were thinking when you came up with some questions?
Yeah, you know, I'm not going to lie. They're kind of all over the place, a little bit random, but I just feel like, you know, there's some important questions and some answers and insight that you can give us that I thought would be really beneficial to the listeners, including myself. So I just have a list of questions here that I'd love to ask you and kind of get your thoughts on. So,
yeah. And I think it's going to be fun because I love interviewing all the amazing guests that we have on the podcast, but I also like spending time one-on-one with the listeners. And, you know, I always have different things to talk about, things going on in life, things I want to address, things that I've heard from the listeners. But I think Taylor's going to really have some questions that maybe I didn't even think of. So why don't you go ahead and ask him, Taylor?
Yeah, you're in the hot seat today. I like it. Okay, well, the first one that I have here is I feel like something a lot of people ask regarding like sobriety, because some people consider being sober as just no drinking. So do you follow that? Do you smoke weed at all? I've seen that question on social media to you. So why don't you tell us?
I will say that I am sober from all substances. I do not use anything mind altering or anything that could alter my body, my feelings, my physical or mental self. And that is something I'm really passionate about. I want to preface it with the purpose of this podcast is to really create light, hope, and strength and a sounding board, a community for those suffering from past traumas, current traumas, addiction. So in anything I say, there's no judgment. It is just a personal opinion for me. For me, sobriety is defined by not using any mind-altering substances. I do not use marijuana. I do drink some coffee and I do like chocolate. But aside from that, I'm not getting too crazy with anything else. And my sponsor had a saying that, you know, you have to deal with life on life's terms and that you have to go through all the emotions and the feelings. And that's part of sobriety. And so, again, to each his own. For me, if I was to choose to use marijuana, whether medicinally, whatever, anxiety, all of those things, to me, it's a slippery slope on tapping out of the game. So life is a game and it is something that can be hard and difficult at times. But while, you know, marijuana can be something great for anxiety and nerves, for me, I also have an addictive personality. So what's to say I wouldn't be using it much more frequently and as an escape. So for me, I don't want to escape. Of course, sometimes I want to escape, but I don't use that, and I don't use any other substances. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh, of course, yeah. Okay. Are there certain places or things that you can't go to or you can't do anymore, like due to certain triggers or past experiences that you had?
Yeah. Well, you know what's crazy is I just got back from vacation, and vacation is super triggering for me in general, just because, and I've heard this said from other people, but, there's pools and bars and drinking and people drink on vacation. And, sometimes hotels have, wine bar, the little cabinets with the drinks and everything. And it's just like people are letting loose, and whatever. And I have always really struggled with it. But then this last week I was on vacation and it wasn't that hard. I definitely noticed people drinking around me, but it wasn't like a longing or feeling like I'm in a worse place, or I'm screwed, I can't do what these people are doing. It was fine actually, and but I did eat really bad. So I mean, we all have our ways of having some fun, getting a little sassy with it. For me, I had a lot of virgin drinks too, and that was fun. But aside from that, I would say I'm not gonna go to a club. I'm not going to go to a hardcore bar. I can go out to dinner, and sometimes, I have my moods too. So I am very self-aware. I have times where I have no problem being around people having a few drinks. It's actually kind of fun or entertaining. And then there's times where I probably wouldn't want to do that. So I just use my own, self meter, I guess, to determine what that is. But I know there are people that say that they can go to hard concerts and, be out in real hardcore drinking environments. And I don't really think that's great. I've said in the past, though, one of my triggers is definitely good weather, period. I was a very big to drink out on patios and just day drink and do all that. And so I think it's all getting better with time, but it also depends on where you're at inside, and you have to be monitoring that.
Yeah. Okay. So this is an interesting one because obviously you're very active and you work out a lot and everybody knows that. So were you as active as you are now when you were in active addiction? Also, what is it like to work out hungover?
Yeah. Those are really good questions. So, okay. So I started working out in high school, and it just really caught on for me. I really liked it. And I've always been kind of a gym rat to some level, going through different training, different programs, and just kind of being really a gym person. But in my active addiction, no, I definitely the craziest thing is, the first 2 years of owning the Hills Salon and Spa, I only worked out probably 2 or 3 times. And, you have to remember, I was smoking cigarettes, which is crazy.
Yeah, but you were, you looked good. That's what's obviously you look better now, but, that's why
I danced at clubs a lot, dropped it like it was hot. No. And I also, didn't eat as much because, you're drinking. And I know a lot of people say there's a lot of calories in drinks, and not to negate any of that. And I think at times, I might have looked okay, but I was kind of soft, I didn't have good tone, muscle tone. But I definitely, so really I had gotten sober before I bought my business and changed it over and kind of came up with the Hills. But I started drinking normally right before I took ownership and started. And then I kind of drank normally for almost a year, little moments here and there, but I still just wasn't working out because I had never done a business before and I was busy, and your just priorities are all wrong. And then that second year was just, and no. But back in the day, just saying when I've had more normal stints of drinking, I definitely still was a heavy drinker, partier at times. Hungover working out isn't good. It's not good. No one wants to do it, and you don't have the same intensity, performance. And, down to the end of my addiction, I was not only hungover all the time, I was drinking, in the morning to be okay. So there was no working out. I remember one time, I went and I was went with a friend, and I was just okay, can we go get mimosas now? It barely worked out. It wasn't a real thing. But I think now being sober and having that outlet, it's great because I don't go to the clubs, and I like music and I like dancing. And, I think someday I'll go to a club on occasion, just for an hour or two to dance. But I have that outlet of getting out that extra tension and listening to loud music and having fun when I go to the gym now.
Yeah. Well, with that being said too, what changes in your body and mind have you noticed since being sober? Obviously, it's easier to kind of get in shape without having that in your body. So what would you say to that?
I always think I'm so lucky because sometimes we do body sculpting and things like that at our spa, and you talk to people and they're worried about cutting out their wine or whatever and the calories, and it's I don't have to worry about that. I have to worry about cutting out all the cookies and the other things. But at least when I am eating clean, like I'm not still trying to sneak that glass of wine in, whatever. So definitely dietary wise, so it's a chemical, it's a poison that you're putting into your body. It serves you no purpose whatsoever in any shape, way, or form ever. So there's so much of a difference in how I can perform now and how I feel now. And occasionally when I do feel like a headache or a little bit sick, I'm such a baby. And I'm like, how did I make it through these epic hangovers? Like, I don't know. And I think about how amazing the body is and how much it can heal. And, you have regret with like all the trauma I've put my body through. But, I'm happy in the fact that now I can do, crazy cleanses and drink bone broth and do all the things that I do to try to nourish it and get it back on track. But I feel 10 times better and stronger and happier.
So kind of shifting gears here, I feel like a lot of people ask questions about AA because obviously you're a big advocate for AA, and I know it's not some people's cup of tea, but for those who may be thinking about it, what are the main thing, obviously besides getting sober, what are the main things did it do for you or show you really?
Well, first and foremost, it just gave me some level of community. And when I was in such a place of feeling so much shame and feeling so bad, and like I couldn't even imagine living this life because I destroyed it so badly. It's nice to feel like people don't hate you, look down upon you, think anything of you. If anything, they totally get it. They relate to you. Like, that camaraderie is priceless. Then in addition to that, hearing all the people tell like that they've done it, but then hearing them be that dependent on alcohol or that down in their bottom, and now they're this many years sober and they're doing all these things and they're happy and they're in a great relationship, having a baby, like all the different stories that might come. You just, that tiny part of you that wants to give up, you basically you don't give up because you think maybe it could happen for me, even though part of you is kind of like, no, I don't think it's going to happen for me, and I'm broken and I'm never going to be fixed and I can't stop. You hang on a little bit, and then there's someone to vent to, you have a sponsor, you work steps. It gives you something to do, to be quite frank, because what did you used to do? Drink and party and have fun and go crazy and do all these things and embarrass yourself. So now you've got somewhere else to spend some energy on, where you get to feel normal, where people understand you. And so I don't understand why people look down upon it for maybe thinking they're better than it, because, I was a business person, and and like I said, I'd been healthy before, I had been in shape before. I didn't go in there and think I was better than anyone, because while you can't go in there looking for the differences, you go in looking for the similarities, and then you get off your high horse and you realize if you had so many things figured out, then you wouldn't be where you are right now. But I do understand that some people don't like AA because of some of the religious principles. And for that, again, with this podcast, I say whatever it takes for you, it's okay. There's other sober recovery things out there that people can find and utilize, tools. And I think the more the better. The more you can double down on different things and the more community you can find is always best. And I'll be honest, in case any of my former AA friends are listening, I haven't been to AA since the pandemic, really, maybe once or twice. And for me, this podcast has become such an outlet and such a part of my recovery. And sometimes I sit and think, I really should go back. Our business life is crazy right now. I've never been more stretched in my life. And I'm not saying I don't have time for it, but I think you don't have to make anything an end all. I think you use a tool from the toolbox when you need it. And if you need to put it down for a little while, that's okay too. But make sure you're not doing anything, because recovery is always some kind of work.
Right. Like, don't forget it's there, that tool that you have. Okay. How do you deal with negative thoughts or memories about like your past? Like, do you ever like have flashbacks to like, something that happened when you were drinking, and how do you deal with that, or how do you get it out of your head?
It's funny that you were saying that right now, because just recently someone was saying something to me that made me think of, like, I don't really feel that bad about it all anymore. Like, I would say occasionally just with the kids, stuff with the kids for sure, just because they witnessed things. I behaved a certain way, I can never take those things back. And because my 8-year-old gets a totally different version of me, that you just don't ever really get over. So those things do pop up in demand. But in the beginning, the first couple years, I was like always ruminating thoughts about how I embarrass myself, what so-and-so thinks of me. These people are talking about me. They know I used to drink like that. I fell down there. I said this, whatever the hell, like, I was like consumed by that. I mean, the first 90 days to 6 months just consumed. And now I authentically probably at a 95% don't care anymore. Like, I feel like I've done all the work. I feel like I'm doing all the right things. I'm trying to help where I can. Like, I know I've changed myself, and I know what I do on the daily. And I know I've gotten to this place where so many people think of me differently that I don't have to live there anymore. And the craziest thing was my nanny, Mariah, you know her well. She had said, so she was talking to someone. I was with one of the other girls that maybe did her lashes or something. Yeah. Oh, I think it was Elena. And she said, Mariah just said how amazing of a mom you are, and you're always there, but it's weird because you're always there, but you're always working, but you're always doing something, and, just other things. And I was like, like, I was like, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life, and that is who, I don't want to get emotional, but that's who I really am and who I always was meant to be. And it's not an excuse or saying anything. It's just like when you're lost in that addiction and all the like past trauma that I have from like my childhood, and you make all these horrible decisions, but you're just not being who you are. Like, this is who I really am. And it's so nice to have someone see me for who I really am. And like, she would never imagine meeting maybe a nanny from 8 years ago who wouldn't have said that at all. And, or like, Tom, Dick, and Harry that saw me at whatever, like, she'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, and it's taken years to get here. I'm at almost 3 years sober, and I just never want to go back there. And I know that I am her, and I get to be her. And with each day and each decision I continue to make, I leave more and more of that behind. And I mentioned this on a previous episode, this girl that we follow on Instagram and stuff that posted like something like, we always beat ourselves up for who we used to be, but what about loving her for getting us to who we are, something along getting us to who we are today. And that's what I have to believe, is that in some ways I feel like it wasn't really, I know it's a kind of a weird statement to make, but I feel like in some ways it wasn't really me. And I had to go through all the things that I've gone through so that maybe someday I could help someone else in the same position, because you never want to think, like, especially my childhood trauma, like those things are horrendous and horrible, and they're hard to even think about. So, a lot of these things set me up from where I was, and now I get to forgive myself for all the mistakes I made and cherish who I get to be today, and then try to every day get better. Because like, previous guest that we just interviewed, he's so happy and kind, and he is always gracious and operating from love and light. And while I want to do that, and I think I authentically am that, I can be short or combative or, negative. And I would like to work on that. So it's about not knowing you're not done, but you're a hell of a lot farther than where you came from. And there's only more good stuff to come.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. So this kind of goes back to, I think, what you're saying kind of about your vacation, but can you still have fun in an environment where you're sober and everyone's drinking? Like, I know, like, like more like having fun. Like if you went to dinner with all of us, like at the spot, all of us were drinking and you weren't, like, would you have fun or would you be like, I want to leave?
Yeah. Such a good question. Like, well, because right when you first said it, I imagined myself at like a pool party.
Right.
Everyone's going hard, and I'm like, you're all fucking crazy, right? But no. So like not that, right? But then there's another. So there's different environments. And it's like, yes, if I was at dinner with all of you guys and you were in the 1 to 3 drink range, I would be fine and having fun. I'd probably eat something a little naughty, enjoy it, and then, I'd go home at a reasonable time, whatever. But if I probably maybe stayed too long, or if it just got to where people are being kind of sloppy, they're just not as funny. The reality is everyone thinks they're so funny when they're drunk, and every story is 10 times more like, wow, that happened to you. Like, and you're like, no, that's not that funny, So I think it's, for me, the real measure is how much people are drinking and how vast it is, Like if it's a few drinks and it's for a short amount of time, great. But if it's a lot of drinks for a long amount of time, no, it's not my cup of tea. It's just not my jam anymore.
Right.
And I will say that, like, I lived that life. I partied so hard, and I was like, Miss Social Butterfly, and I was thinking about the other day because I was just driving, and like, I'm so content not being in the scene. And there used to be this part of me that was super Scottsdale, know everybody, like that whole vibe, like think I'm cool because I'm out at places. And now I'd much rather be, getting a pizza and hanging out at home. And also, like, I go to bed earlier than other people. I wake up earlier than other people, and I can probably make more money than other people just because they're hungover, like, so you think about that, and then it makes you happier with your decisions, because I'm on my hustle right now. I'm not in that place where I just want to flitz around. I did that, been there, done that,
Well, what would you say to someone who can't have fun socially, like without drinking? Like maybe they're struggling to get sober and they get invited out somewhere and they're like, well, I can't have fun if I'm not having a drink. Like, do you have any advice for those people?
That's so complicated, because I have like certain things just came to me right when you said that. But like my initial thing was don't go out. And also like be okay with being an introvert. Like a lot of us think we're this one person, and maybe you're not that person. And we use alcohol or other drugs as a form of changing who we authentically are to meet the standards. My therapist said to me the other day, I said, I feel lonely sometimes. I feel like I don't fit in, I can't go do certain things. And she said, of course you feel lonely because you woke up from the Matrix, April. Like you are operating at a different level of not only like what I'm trying to do work-wise, that has little to do with it, but like I don't want to be around all the toxicity, because a lot of times with drinking, with partying, with all that comes, people. And this is, people want to sleep around, that's fine, that's up to you. But people are sleeping around, they're talking to so-and-so, they're doing this, somebody's talking behind somebody's back, there's drama here. Like, that's all crazy, that's small, that's tiny, that's not what I'm about, that's not my mission. So back to like what the listener who might feel like, God, I can't have fun. Like, I would just invite you to be okay with maybe not doing those same things. I sometimes have guests that say that, they cut out certain people, they change certain habits. Sometimes you got to change it all. Sometimes you got to let go. And then maybe being a little bit lonely to find out who you really are is okay. And maybe trying different things. So I'm not saying it's going to be like that forever, but I guess I would say if the person's trying to be newly sober, maybe skip all that for a while, maybe dig in deep and find out who you are. And then as time progresses, I feel like it really does become easier. And now, like, I remember this one poignant time in the very beginning, it was sometime the first year, I was trying to go to that party at Bodega. And you were working the front desk that day, and everyone was drinking around me, and it was all really annoying people because, like, you don't know them, so you got to do small talk, and they were a lot of older people. Our spot location that we have now is up really in an older area, which is fine, but, I tried to, normally I would have had a few glasses of wine, pump it up, be schmoozing people, whatever, and I felt horrible. It was boring, whatever, and I came back in, and I just sat in our waiting chair and cried to Taylor and said, I'm never going to fit in. I'm not normal. I can't be like anyone else. And, that's part of I hate to say it, for most people, it's part of recovery. And part of recovery is getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, learning a new life, and being okay fighting through those moments and knowing that someday your life will start clicking together like pieces of a puzzle, and you'll know what's right for you and what isn't. And it's worth getting through that time to find out who you really are and get to live your authentic self.
Have you, I hope not to this question, but have you encountered someone being unsupportive, like of your sobriety, or like bringing you down or being negative to you about it?
I haven't encountered anyone being, I will say there was a woman back from when I lived in the Bay Area for a few years that was super mean to me about my issues and kind of just said, some negative, derogative things, like didn't believe things I said and wasn't nice about it. I won't go too far into detail. But aside from that, I won't say that anyone has been negative or unsupportive. I have had a couple people want to encourage me to drink. I've had several people. I've had a couple guy friends and one girlfriend that I cut the girl out of my life for sure. She was like, so when are you going to drink again? But you're only doing this for this long. And I went to like a movie with her and she got hammered. And
did you tell her like I'm sober? Yeah. And she's like, well, for how long?
I said, I don't know how long, probably forever, because I can't do this, whatever. And that was still pretty new.
Right.
But since then, even more recently, like I had a guy friend that I worked with in the technology industry. He's one of the nicest older guy, really good guy. But he's like, well, I don't, he's like, and sometimes people are just ignorant. He's like, well, I don't understand. Like, can't we get somewhere in between,
Oh,
and he's like, I get it. Maybe you don't want to be the old crazy April, but like, a couple drinks, whatever. And I'm like, no, I really can't. I that's not something I know how to do. And then, my other friend, another guy friend that comes in sometimes for treatments at the spa, he's been like, so you're really not, you've done it for a long time now. Like, I think some people also think like you don't have a problem, even if they've seen me do crazy things. They didn't see as much, but they saw some crazy things. I think they think, but you've proven it now. You've dropped it for that many years. And every once in a while, I don't have it often, but I did have one probably within the last few months where I thought a little bit about like, wow, like I have done this for a long time. I wonder if I ever could like be disciplined. I'm so disciplined now. Could I have could I have a rule? But then I know all the logic behind it and I know how intense I am. And I say goodbye to that thought because all I want to do is protect who I've become today.
So the next two questions, I feel like a lot of people that listen to your podcast, including myself, like maybe aren't necessarily an addict, but know people that are or have a close family member. So how would you handle somebody close to you or a family member experiencing, what you went through with your addiction?
It's so hard. I've had to check myself a few times of almost being a tiny bit judgmental of someone that I knew that was going through it. And I had to be like, you were in that exact same position. Actually, it even happened to me on vacation because there was this mom that was like drinking a lot at the pool, wealthy, had a nanny, whatever. And I'm like, you did that once too. And so I think it's also always first and foremost for me, coming back to, who I am and realizing that, I've been through all this and I'm one drink away from relapsing. But what I would do is, some tough love because I believe too many people are enabled. And I believe I would be there for that person, but I would be pretty, maybe I'm a kind of aggressive person anyway. So, but I would be, I would be tiny bit aggressive with them and just, laying it out. This is what you're doing. This is what's happening to your body. Like, this is how we can fight it. I'd be there when they're showing that they want to put in the work. But the reality is, why this disease is so frustrating is because the person has to be ready. I've said this before, like I drank through children. Like it didn't mean I didn't love them. It doesn't mean that you don't love all your, your family, the people that are watching you destroy your own self and life. It's something has to happen to the addicted person that changes that they want to do it for themselves, because we can want to do it for a loved one, but we have to want to do it for ourselves, and we have to go through really brutal pain. And so I know that that strikes home for you and everything that you've been through. And I hope that answers some of it.
Yeah. Well, this is a little bit different because not necessarily like a family member, but more like, what would you tell someone whose like significant other is in active addiction? Like, and maybe they don't, they don't want any help or anything. Like, how do you navigate that relationship really? Like,
yeah, the only way, I mean, this is going to be hardcore, but the only way you don't help them navigate it. You leave, you put them out, you drop them off at a rehab facility, a detox. And, I've been through several detoxes, one stint in rehab, then relapsed. The only way is to continue to do it. If there's any tolerance of their behavior in allowing them to stay in the relationship, you are enabling. You are setting them up for failure. That you are loving your love of them more than you truly love them, if that makes sense. So you can't, because it just teaches them that there's some level that you're okay with. And that may seem hardcore and you can have a different opinion, but that's the only way.
So as a parent, if you catch your kid smoking weed or drinking in high school, do you think it's better to play it softly or go harder in punishing them with the risk of pushing them to do the drug more?
That's a hard one, because it's kind of difficult for me to answer. I can try to do it on a high level, but like for me, we're super vocal about addiction. Yeah. I recently re-encountered a half sibling from my dad's side, and, just learned even more about how deep addiction runs in my family and the, addiction of alcohol. And, I thought to myself, I wish I would have knew more about this, because it might have helped me to be a little more. I had no idea that we got so addicted and so many people were affected. So in my household, it's constant talk about it. My children have seen it. So my children, really luckily so far, I mean, the 16-year-old is like, I wouldn't even date a girl that did that. Like, my 19-year-old doesn't drink. She's sober by choice. And then, my 8-year-old will have to see. But he still remembers a bit of it. I got sober when he was 5. And he still annoyingly has some memories. Yeah. I'm like, God, you're supposed to not remember any of that. But so with us, we all talk about it. It runs in your family. You shouldn't be doing this. So if I caught my 8-year-old, fast forward, he's 16, he's partying, I'd be like, really? You want to go down this path? Like, be careful. And I said recently to my 16-year-old, if you want to drink occasionally or even try pot occasionally, you can, but remember that you lean towards addiction genetically, so be very careful with it. And I would prefer that you didn't, but if that's something you want to do on occasion, that's your choice, it's your life, but be very careful because you're playing with fire. So I would say maybe do the same thing. If you're a parent and, maybe addiction doesn't run in your family, but you're worried because you saw that your child is dabbling, I would say people need to know more about addiction. So have them listen. Maybe say, fine, you're going to do this on occasion. Listen to a couple podcasts. Take them to a meeting. Have them read some literature that's beyond just that basic textbook stuff, because people need to know what a slippery slope this is. But at the end of the day, I also kind of do believe if you're going to act like a Nazi about it and not let them do any experimenting as a kid, that could push them the other way. So I think it's a very fine line, and just an open dialogue with a lot of communication and being aware of all the people that do become addicted to these different substances is important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, just for me personally, I grew up in a family. Addiction very much runs in the family, but it was always a secret and it was never talked about. And, I could see how that could, lead someone in a different direction. Yeah. Thankfully, not me. Yeah. So, but yeah, I like that it's very open and honest. And I think that it should be more. Yeah. So I like that you said that. Well, I only have one more question for you, and it's something that you ask everybody, and I feel like, we know, but I want to hear what your answer would be to the question that you ask all your, people that you interview is, who are you today?
Oh my gosh, that's a good stuff. No. Who am I today? Well, first and foremost, I'm a mom. I guess second of all, I'm someone who is trying to change the world, and that might sound slightly pompous or arrogant, but like, I have to do something differently than what's happening right now. And I think, like Taylor knows, one of my biggest dreams is to do something long-term for survivors of, sex trafficking, child sex trafficking particularly. So, we have a big long-term goal. I would say the person I am now is a mom. I wouldn't even say, I'm a friend, but I don't know that I'm more of a mentor. And that's not because I have it all figured out, but I'm busy and I'm focused on basically my business, my family, and that's really, the podcast, that's really it. So the people that I am friends with are all within the business for the most part. I have a handful of friends outside of it, but we're so busy I don't get to spend too much time with them. So I would say I'm trying to be a mentor for women. Like, I want to see other women do well. And I guess, but being a mom is definitely number one for me, and just doing things differently than I used to do. And, to spread light, not to sound, hokey, but I want to spread light in a world that has a lot of darkness. And I just have this firm belief that we all live a super shallow life, and that most people, especially people that get to live, a normal life, have no idea the atrocities and darkness that are happening every day in our world. And I just don't want to get caught living this everyday Scottsdale life. And I say that in being honest, I like nice things. I'm very materialistic at times, but I want to also create a legacy that changes things. I want to have fun and enjoy the things that I've built, but I want to, behind that, really build a legacy that down the road you see us, 10 years from now, and we're doing big things to change things. And we've, created an empire that supports that and that really makes a lot of money that can be funneled off to that. So I would say who I am is a mom, a mentor, a woman, and hopefully someone who can eventually spread light.
Yeah. No, I was hoping that you'd say mentor, because that's what I would describe you as, definitely for me, for sure. And you do spread light, so you should know that. But that is all of the questions I have for you today. This was fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. I'm thankful that you came on and asked those questions. I feel like you always kind of know what's going on in my mind. So it's nice to be able to share with the listeners, a little bit of a session with us. Someday we're going to need to do another real true interview.
Yeah,
with you
and
me.
I think we're going to ask the viewers, actual questions now, and they'll have some for us. So that'll be a fun episode too.
Yay.
So I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Of course, dear. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining. I hope this question and answer session really gave you a little bit more info about me and what I'm thinking. And if you want to catch up and really learn more about our mission, our community, abuserecoverysuccess.com, you can follow me at April_the_hills on TikTok, Instagram. You can find all our amazing YouTube videos of these podcast sessions on April Hill. Thanks, guys.